The question is not if we will fail, but rather how. Will we take the chance to start all over again and follow Jesus? Not because we need it, but because he needs us. The scriptural text of this morning takes us to the Sea of Galilee and breathes the same urgency and intimacy as the opening counseling session with Freud. We are witnesses to a very raw and tender moment in Peter's life. I'm reading from chapter 21, verses 15 to 17. After breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these others?" "Yes, Lord," he answered, "you know that I love you." "Then feed my lambs." A second time he asked, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord, you know I love you." "Then tend my sheep." A third time he said, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter was hurt that he asked them a third time, "Do you love me?" "Lord," he said, "you know everything. You know I love you." Jesus said, "Then feed my sheep." Only a few days after the crucifixion, the disciples are back home in Galilee. They've resumed their fishing trade. Jerusalem has become too dangerous for them. Their families must have been glad to see them. The daily struggle for food will have an end. Finally, someone is earning money again. They're back in the boats on the sea until the early morning. The unexpected meeting with the risen Christ begins with yet another big catch. After a long and unsuccessful night, it is followed by a shared meal at the shore. In both instances, Jesus reassures his friends of his ongoing presence. He will provide for their needs, and those needs include both the body and the heart. There is a hunger for bread and a thirst for inner peace. Do we agree that there cannot be peace without bread? But do we also agree that we do not live by bread alone, but by every word and every gesture that speaks to our restless hearts seeking peace? The Swiss pedagogue Johann Heinrich Pestalozzi drew an important lesson for teachers and mentors from this scene. Yes, come with the words, but only at the end. When the risen Christ arrives, he arrives first of all with a full net and a meal. Only then comes the exchange of words between Jesus and Peter. Notice how in this resurrection story, reconciliation comes before forgiveness. Those who share the bread are reunited through a simple gesture of love and care. The sharing precedes the conversation around questions of loyalty and trust. At the same time, Jesus does not gloss over what happened in the last few days. He does not shy away from the difficult and uncomfortable questions. He does not just trust that time heals wounds. But, and this is significant, given the track record of the church, there's also no interrogation, no inquisition, and no reckoning. The risen Christ has come to raise those whose spirits have been crushed. Resurrection is not finished until everyone is brought back to life. The only indication that things have slightly cooled down between Jesus and Peter is the rather formal address Jesus chooses: Simon, son of John. But Jesus goes straight to the heart of the matter. He does not expect a detailed confession of transgressions, followed by a prayer of absolution and a promise of forgiveness. Jesus is very unorthodox in his approach. "Do you love me, Peter?" Jesus asks. But how? We wonder. Can Peter love Jesus if he cannot even love himself? There are truths about ourselves that are difficult to accept. We are often our own worst enemy and easily sabotage ourselves. Also, the closer we get to each other, the more intimate the relationship, the greater the risk to get wounded and hurt. Indeed, the better we know each other, the more dangerous we also become to each other. Denial and betrayal do not happen among opponents, but among friends. Three times Jesus asks Peter, "Do you love me?" The questions echo Peter's threefold denial. But this is not done to shame Peter. To the contrary, the focus is on each moment of transgression. Jesus addresses Peter's sense of guilt without questioning the integrity of his love. There is indeed a big difference between feelings of shame and feelings of guilt. Guilt and shame are both complicated emotions, but the difference between the two of them is significant and far-reaching. Guilt says, I feel badly about what I did or didn't do. It is about feeling badly about a mistake that can be corrected and forgiven. We can learn from this and act differently in the future. There is the promise of healing. Shame says, on the other hand, I feel badly about who I am or who I am not. We are made to feel that something is wrong with us. Our self-image is hurt and our belief that we can change is undermined. We then cannot admit our mistakes and become defensive. Shame-based criticism questions our character and is quickly internalized as a truth about who we are as a person. We are being made to feel worthless and that we are never good enough. When Jesus addresses Peter, he's holding him accountable, yes, but without shaming him. By asking him, "Do you love me?" he's giving Peter the opportunity to reaffirm what has never been in doubt, Peter's love for Jesus. In other words, Jesus is not questioning Peter's love as such. He's rather addressing the difficulty to live and love with integrity, especially in a moment of crisis when our safety is at stake. The focus is therefore on three concrete acts of denial, which were painful and disappointing for both sides. But if acknowledged, such failure can be forgiven and transformed into a place of learning and healing. So feelings of shame trap us, but feelings of guilt can transform us. Peter's response is telling. He's learned from past mistakes. He no longer makes bold proclamations of loyalty and commitment. His confession of faith has a new ring and tone. You know I love you. In other words, you decide if you are able to trust me once again. You decide on the integrity and depth of my love for you. It is a confession that no longer relies on one's own convictions and strength, but seeks the reassurance and trust of the other, who knows both our limitations and poverty of spirit, and yet loves us, believes in our love and good intentions. Even a rock needs a bigger rock to rest on. There's a new humility. Peter's confidence no longer rests on what he thinks he can do or say. It is now fully dependent on what Jesus sees in him. So may this be our prayer then. Jesus, I pray, please see me into a love that drives out all fear and shame, forgiving and renewing.